In the last class, we were having a look at theme 9, Kings and Chronicles, the Mughal court circa 16th to 17th century. And we saw the empires apart from the Mughal Empire, we saw an empire in Iran, the Safavids of Iran, and the Ottomans of Turkey, which were very powerful and large kingdoms, and the Mughals had to maintain relations with them. So the subtopic was called Beyond the Frontiers. We already had a look at the relations that they had to maintain, and the bone of contention between the Mughals and Safavids was Kabul and Kandahar. Safavids of Iran were, of course, almost neighbors of the Mughal Empire. Not almost neighbors, they were actually neighbors. Another strong kingdom was Turkey, the Ottomans of Turkey. Of course, Turkey is not neighboring to Mughal India. However, the Ottomans controlled very important sacred places for the Muslims, which is Mecca and Medina, and the Mughals, if they had to send their subjects for Hajj, they had to make sure that the Ottomans would allow those subjects to do Hajj without any problem, and so the Mughals had to maintain the relations with the Ottomans. Aurangzeb, however, we saw in the last point that he realized that there was a lot of corruption, and whatever gifts and money he used to send for the Ottoman Empire and for the shrines there in Mecca and Medina, he realized his officials were pocketing all the money, and finally he said, I'm not going to give all this money, and why does anyone have to go all the way there for Hajj, I mean, house of God is anyway, why only consider Mecca and Medina? Mecca to be the house of God. House of God can be in India also. And so he asked his people to pay more attention to their lives and to their faith, instead of having to only prove it by just traveling all the way. We also saw the Jesuits of Europe. The Jesuits who came from Europe and propagated Christianity. Akbar very interestingly listened to them, very attentively listened to them. But before we move ahead, I'll just show you in the map where Safavid and Ottoman Turkey are as compared to India. Starting from the right hand side, the purple portion is Mughal Empire. That's of course also India, because then you can make out the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. Look at the Mughal Empire extending all the way up to Kashmir and Kabul. Kabul is part of Afghanistan. And of course, present-day Pakistan also was a part of the Mughal Empire. Notice how the Mughal Empire stopped at the Deccan, alright? So, in fact, the only Mughal emperor who was able to invade Deccan was Aurangzeb. I mean, not always very successfully, and he spent a lot of resources in it, and not a lot of nobles were happy. But he was the only one who challenged them more aggressively. The rest of the Mughal emperors only consolidated more of the northern territories. As you move left from the Mughal Empire, the pinkish orangish, more on the orange side, the portion that you see is the Safavid Empire. Notice Fargana is also written there. Remember, Babur came from Fargana. So, in the beginning, the Uzbeks had chased Babur away, and so Babur ran from Fargana in search of new territories and came all the way to India. Anyway, Safavid Empire, you will see Persia written under it. Persia was the older name for Iran. So, Iranians, Persians, Iran, Persia, it's all the same thing. Notice the border of the Mughal Empire and the Safavid Empire. You will see Kandahar written. You also see Kabul written. right? So Kabul is purple. Kabul eventually came under the Mughals. However, Kandahar, there are alternate spellings, so it can be spelled as Kandahar, or the K can be replaced by a Q. It's both correct. Notice here that the Kandahar region is under the rule of the Safavids. As we move further westwards, look at the region colored in green. That is the Ottoman Empire. Notice how the regions in the Ottoman Empire are also Mecca and Medina. So it's the northern portion of Africa, which is Egypt, of course, Egypt, Cairo, and then it's the coastal areas of Arabia, which are Mecca, Medina, Yemen. Jerusalem, Damascus is Syria. Iraq is also under the Ottoman Empire. And a little north, Anatolia. And Istanbul, Turkey. So that's the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans were important, especially for the Muslims, because they were believed to be the religious head. So the Khalifa or the Caliph, and this position was called the Caliphate, they came from the Ottoman Empire. Much later, when we study modern India, we'll see how forces in India, both Muslims in India, along with Hindus, will unite against the British, because the British take away the properties of the Caliph. The Caliph is defeated after the First World War, and the British take away the properties and say that we're not going to reinstall the Caliph to his position, and that is when the Muslims revolt, because the Caliph is their religious head. I want you to notice carefully how all the three, Mughal Empire, the Safavid Empire, and the Ottoman Empire, they are all members or followers of the same religion. All three of them are Muslims, or all three of them follow Islam, but all three of them will be fighting against each other for more territory, A, and B, all three of them will have different ideas about how they want to rule, how they want to be perceived by their subjects, how tolerant they are towards people of other faith. And as we move ahead with this lesson and with other lessons in history and then with life in general, I want you to think about it and understand that stereotyping a certain religion or people of a certain religion is not okay. Like we see here, all three following a similar religion, but all three of them having very different ideas of rule. An example of how popular the Mughals were in India is when the revolt of 1857 broke out and all the Indians united against the British. Their symbolic ruler, they chose Bahadur Shah Zafar, who was the last Mughal emperor, as their symbolic leader, because they said, no, he is as much Indian as us because he's born here. However, the British were the foreigners. We've already had a look at the Jesuits promoting Christianity. Try to remember when we had a look at Europe in Form 11, we saw that the Jesuits were formed after the Protestants started attacking the Orthodox Catholics in the Reformation. and where they said that the church was corrupt, was exploiting people, and then Society of Jesus said, the Jesuits said, no, we're here to do charity work and to spread the word of God. And as missionaries, they also came to India, apart from, of course, being travelers and diplomats and merchants. Very importantly, they came here as missionaries, where they went around preaching the word of God, the word of Jesus to the people, and they helped them economically. They tried to set up schools. Of course, they are also unpopular for the idea that they converted people. But then again, they were converting people through preaching, preaching, not forcefully putting a sword right on their necks and saying, we'll kill you if you don't convert. So that's another important aspect to look at, or rather interesting aspect to look at. Remember, I told you how Akbar was very tolerant as a leader, and he was very interested in knowing what people of other religions were preaching and thinking. So he established something called the Ibadat Khana for this. Alright, very important. Please remember this Ibadat Khana, the name, especially for 1 mark questions. If it's asked that in order to quench his quest for religious knowledge, what did Akbar establish? So Ibadat Khana is the answer. Ibadat literally means praying, and khana would mean a house or a room. So this place is where people are praying, but in the sense they are not only praying to one religion. In fact, they are preaching their religion very diplomatically and very tolerantly to everyone who is willing to listen. In fact, there were discussions that they had with each other. So it was a place for discussion of learned religious men of all faiths: Muslims, Hindus, Jains, Parsis, and Christians. Akbar moved away from the orthodox Islamic ways and focused on the light and the sun. So the sun, even today, the sun is very important for us. It's the basic source of energy for all living organisms on the planet. And Akbar at that time gave a lot of importance to the sun also. And apart from that, the light in the sense is this inner light that you have that shines through you. That's sort of an idea. Since he moved away from the orthodox Islamic ways, which is the group which will not like him? The ulama. Remember, because the ulama is the orthodox Islamic religious scholars group. So they were not very happy with Akbar. Abdul Qadir Badani, a theologian and courtier, was critical of Akbar's policies. So Badani thought Akbar did not hold Akbar in very high opinion, because he kept seeing how Akbar was so inclined towards knowing about other religions and amalgamating all of them. In fact, Badani also wrote a book called Muntakhab ut Tawarikh. Again, very important for 1 mark question. The book written by Badani, or who wrote Muntakhab ut Tawarikh? So Abdul Qadir Badani. Religious debates in the court. It's probably night time. You can see on top on the left corner, it's dark, the sky. That's of course Akbar right in the middle on the throne. Not exactly a throne because not a courtroom, but his position. And you have he's been surrounded by people. Notice how whatever these people are wearing would also eventually indicate their faith. All people sitting and discussing with him, all kinds of books and things kept in the middle. And Akbar very interestingly listening. So probably the men who are dressed in black belong to one religion. Then other men who have that certain mustache belong to another religion. So another group of men who are almost clean shaven, they belong to another religion. A lot of times we see that people dress up and have certain ways of portraying themselves because of the religion they follow. We're going to stop here. Thank you.